Shaniqua, Latoya, LaQuisha, Lakeisha, Latanya, Rohandra, Bonquisha, Shatanya, Sopramination, LaQuishria, Bonifa, Shataniana, Lavondia, Bobisha, Monique, Adwiniana, Belandra, Keisha, Bonquiqui, Shanae, Tay Tay, Tromesia, Delanice, Kalikati Brianiqua, Shalandra, Shaquanda, Ella Patisha, LaQuisha, Congratulations, Shayla. Barakisha, Obama Nikwa.
The audio I just played comes from a popular YouTube video entitled The Top 60 Ghetto Names. I will reference this piece later in the presentation. What do you think? Have you heard names like that before? How would you feel if I told you someone you were about to meet had a name like that? If you own a business, how would you feel if you saw a name like that on a resume and/or job application? How inclined to interview them would you be? Don't answer that. Just ponder these questions for a moment. The purpose of this presentation is to tackle the issue of black names and how they affect black Americans in the United States of America today. Black names, also known as black sounding names and even ghetto names, are generally post-70s naming conventions used by predominantly African Americans and lower tiered social strata. They often come from the concatenation or combinations of two white names. The example here is Julissa, which is a combination of Julia and Lisa. Places like China and India, like the famous India Irie. Things like Alizé, Hennessy, which are alcoholic beverages. Arabic names like Shahid, but also names like Octavia, Lucius, and Cortez. Suffixes and prefixes like Charday, Deshawn, and creative spellings and punctuations of Gina and Ladasha. In the 50s and early 60s, the most popular names for boys and girls were both the same for whites and blacks. There was no talk of black names. So how did the divergence in naming conventions between blacks and whites come about? There's evidence that during the civil rights movement in the 60s, African Americans were finding a way to create cultural solidarity. In the early 70s, the adoption of Arabic names became commonplace. Here are a few notables. Kareem, from Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Kareem means generous or noble. Shaquille, from Shaquille O'Neal, means handsome one. Rashid, from Rasheed Wallace, means rightly guided. In the late 70s and early 80s, names became more creative, using prefixes like la and da, and other offshoot vowel sounds like sha, ra, tre, and te. These vowel sounds originate from Latin. For example, French influence in Louisiana and the example of Croix, meaning cross, and the surname Delacroix, meaning of or belonging to Croix, showing possession. Other conventions included spellings with apostrophes to either mimic a surname or to mimic an accent aigu. The Black Names book takes a syllabic approach to determine how the names are joined. For example, the name Terrence and Rhonda each have two syllables, Terrence and Rhonda. So the combined name Tehran has two syllables, Tehran. The black name usually has the same number of syllables as the longest base name. Here, base names create the black names, Terenthia, Moniqua, Ronisha, and Devondria. Syllabic name combinations can come from the names of two parents or two significant people of the baby's mother's choosing, or even more. But let's play a game. We're going to see if you can construct a black name given two base names. Let's say the dad's name is Leonard and the mom's name is Sandra. What's a possible name for their baby daughter? If you guess Leandra, you're right. Leandra could also come from the father of the baby's name being Leon, and the mother's name could be Andrea. Either or, Leandra would be the result. Next up, Auntie Mona and cousin Keisha both played an integral part in helping Mama during the pregnancy. What would she name her baby daughter? If you guessed Monisha, you're getting better at this. Let's do one more together. Ready? Vernon and Tasha have a baby together. What's the name? If you guessed Vertasha, you no longer need me to hold your hand. Also, for example, if the child had been male, we could reverse the names for a more masculine sounding name like Vershawn or Tavern. Now I'm going to give you a little time to guess the rest of your names, and then we'll click back up to check our answers together. Let's go. Now let's check our answers for the rest of the names. Vontasha, Shantoria or Shantoya, Jonica, Janique, and Adonica. Look at the names Keisha and Victoria. They both have asterisks next to them because Keisha actually comes from the name Kasha, which derives from, the bark of an Asian spice tree. And the name Victoria produces the truncated Toya, which is derived from the slurring of the Toria part of the name. We can use the same logic in reverse to define a black name. This is the method used in most of the definitions in the Black Names Matter Black Names book. For example, we have the black name Draymond. The name Draymond is likely to have the Dre sound come from Andre, and the Amond sound come from Raymond. Likewise, in Tishandra, the Tish sound comes from Letitia, and the Andra sound comes from Sandra. It could even come from Andre or Andrea, but in this example, we're using Sandra. In the same way, the John sound in John Tisha comes from John or Joan, and the Tisha comes from the previously defined Tish that has roots in the Roman name Letitia, which means joy or happiness. So now that you've got a few examples in you, let's see how good you are at defining the names on your own. Your job will be to break down the black names into two base names. Good luck. Okay, time to check the answers. Kovasha comes from Courvoisier and Tasha. Angelisa comes from Angela and Lisa. Glendoris comes from Glenn or Glenda and Doris. Gladissa comes from Gladys and Alyssa or Lisa. And Julanda comes from Julia or Julius and Rhonda or Yolanda. I put an asterisk by Kovasha because the name Kovasha originates from a beverage called Courvoisier. And like I mentioned before, sometimes black names can come from things, concepts, and other nouns. Buy the Black Names Matter, the Black Names book today, right now, on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iBook, and Kobo to get your definitions about names about people around the way. Like and subscribe to us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Stay tuned for part 2 where we will be discussing the socio-economic concepts of blackness and in turn, how it plays a role in black names. Thanks for watching.